OnCore. I've got an exciting guest here today, George Chmiel. He is an investor. He's got a background in investment banking, taking Merrill Lynch to new heights, and an ultramarathon runner. He's run races on 7 continents. This man has a really incredible story, and I'm so excited for him to be on the show. He's also a great shareholder and investor in OnCore, believer in the power of our golf ball technology, which is awesome. So George, welcome to the OnCore podcast. Thanks for coming on.
It's great to be on the show. Thanks for having me.
So just to jump to it, I know I reached out to you a few weeks ago and just mentioned that all your ultra races were super inspiring to me, and that I had run a half marathon and was really going down the rabbit hole of David Goggins and getting into his books and methodologies and teachings. And what do you respond with is classic. I'll be with the legend Goggins in 2 weeks at Badwater. I think I fell out of my chair when I read that. So just kind of give our listeners a little bit of background. We can start with kind of how you got into the ultras, and then we'll do a deeper dive as we go along.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I got into running. I think my story is very similar to a lot of people. I was working on Wall Street. I was in my mid to late 20s. I had a wrist injury. I had surgery. And over that winter, I put on a lot of weight, and I was working 80 hours a week, kind of living that aggressive New York City lifestyle, going out a lot, not working out because I was injured, putting on weight, not really being that active, tied to a trading floor all day. And so when I got the cast off in the spring, my wrist was like tiny and the surgery hadn't gone right. And I was like, man, I got to get active again. So I was like, I'll start running. And like most people, I hated running. I always loved sports. I always played sports. I was always an athlete growing up, but just the fact of running was always punishment to me. Like, you're running laps because you screwed up, right? And so just going out there and just running, I hated. So I was like, I need to have a goal. So I decided to sign up for a race. I signed up for a marathon a month later. And everyone's like, oh my God, like, you haven't run, you haven't really trained, whatever. And I'm like, yeah, so I'll go out there, and it might take me 3, 4, 6, 7 hours. We're going to go do it. And I went out and ran that race. And I mean, it's funny. I tell this story a lot because it just shows how pathetic and how little I knew about running. The last 10 miles of that race, it was the San Diego Rock and Roll Marathon. I was running past the aid stations, and the volunteers had wooden sticks with a gooey substance on the end. And I was grabbing and eating, and I was using it as fuel. I thought it was goo. It was Vaseline. It was intended to put on your nipples or your armpits for chafing, and I was eating it. I thought that was the goo. Wow. I thought I was getting a caloric benefit. And,
that's funny.
So like, literally, when you, like, so many people are like, oh my God, you've run across America, you've done these races. I'm like, literally, I started from the bottom. I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but I finished that race, and it was very empowering that, hey, I knew nothing about nutrition. I didn't really train. I just went out there with a goal and a target that said, I'm going to finish this race. I'm going to be unbreakable today. And it was a very powerful thing. And it was like, okay, well, that was actually kind of fun. It hurt a lot, but got it done. Let's do another one. Let's take it a little more serious. And, and kind of, it just sort of grew from there. And then I got into running marathons, got into running ultras, ultimately ran across the country. And so it was something that, like, I never thought would happen. It was, I guess, something I needed at the time. And then I just sort of fell in love with it, and it's become a passion of mine.
I love that. And I love just taking kind of that first step into the unknown, and you're probably never going to be prepared enough for the first one. And, so kudos to you for doing that.
I always say that the first step, it's the hardest, it's the most challenging, but it's always the most rewarding. It's that first step that in anything you do in life, especially being an entrepreneur, a business owner, starting something from scratch, that first step, it's scary, but it's empowering. And you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to get it all right. You just got to get going.
So just wanted to dive into, well, we'll get into Badwater soon, which is a legendary race there. And I know it's quite a challenge just to even get into that race, but racing across America. Now that is not something you hear every day. So just give us the backstory on that.
So it was kind of like, I moved out to California, I guess it was 6 years ago. And after leaving Merrill, it was the first time that I had sort of flexibility in my schedule. I had gotten into running these ultras, and I had really gotten into the charitable component of it. I mean, because when you think about it, you say, hey, I'm going to Antarctica to run 150 miles in negative temperatures, or I'm going to the Sahara Desert to run in this, and I'm doing it to support this cause. It's really important to me. Most people are going to listen. And if they have any sort of kind of relationship with me, most people would say, hey, you know what? We might never see George again. Let's at least support his cause. And so I mean, as much as I make a joke, I mean, it's actually, it's true. And so through ultra running, I realized that I was developing a platform to really drive awareness around causes that were really near and dear to my heart. One being children's growth disorders. My goddaughter has a serious condition, so I did a lot of running there, and veteran different issues around veteran suicide and coming back from war and reacclimating to civilian life and things like that. So I really got into that, and so when I moved out to California, I was like, I don't know if I'm ever going to have another time in my life where I'm not tied down. I have some flexibility. I always just kind of had that Forrest Gump sort of, it was always one of my movies growing up. It's like, man, it'd be kind of cool to just run across the country. And so it was just sort of like an idea. And then like most businesses, I mean, that's how I treated it. Like literally put a business plan together, started sort of forming a team, found the charity partners. And I said, if I'm going to do this, I want to make sure we do it in a way where it impacts every single town that I run through. And so doing it for, is American Sniper, Chris Kyle's organization, the one he started, unfortunately, before he was murdered. I wanted to do it. So I reached out to them, got in contact with his brother, Jeff, and some other people and talked to them. And they were really supportive of the idea. So really started building around it. And then after 18 months of kind of planning and stuff, it led to this incredible kickoff on the USS Midway the morning of 9/11 out here in San Diego. We had like 500 people on the ship. We all ran off together. And then, over the next 3 to 4 months, just kind of chipping away across 14 states, finished at ground zero, went from 115 degrees in the beginning of the run to, it was 20 degrees in New York and freezing cold, and through mountains, through deserts, swam across the Mississippi River and interacted with tens of thousands of people along the way. I mean, it's honestly, I could talk about for days, but it was just such an incredible experience. It was so touching. The people and the experiences, the stories we shared along the way, it was just an amazing way to see the country.
Did I see some media with your father running a leg with you on that?
So they came out for the first week because they're back in the East Coast, they're in Maryland, and they came out for the start of it. And I got injured really early. I think it was just, I had been so beaten down by the pressure of putting on the event and all the media just before I even started running, just the pressure of that Midway event and all this stuff and the charity and all this stuff. I went and hammered so hard the first few days. I got a couple injuries and it really debilitated me for the next month. A lot of people thought I wasn't going to make it. It looked really dire and I was still in California. And so, like day 4 or 5, I was out on Interstate 8, close to Yuma, and it was 115 degrees and I'm hobbling down the road and my dad's out there and he had a torn meniscus. And, as a father, he's looking at his son with 2,700 miles to go, dragging his leg around and everything. And he's like, I'm going to go hobble down the road and suffer with him. And so my mom was in the Cherokee behind us, driving behind us. And then I had my crew, and then we had the RV. We had like 15 guys out there, but my dad he spent like a whole day walking with me, and he had a torn meniscus and was in his late 60s. And I got a partially torn Achilles and a knee injury. And it's like George and George, just 2 guys, and everyone's driving by like, what the hell are they doing? It was crazy, but it's always just such a great memory. I've always looked up to my dad, who's, FBI 52 years. Wow. And has given so much to this country, and he's always just been a humongous inspiration to us and my mom as well. And to be out there with them, that was just a really incredible moment that I always look back in my life. And that just goes to show the sacrifices they've made and what he's made and what I was trying to do at the time for our vets. And it all kind of came together full circle.
With that incredible race across the country, I think it was 94 days.
3 days, yeah.
93 days. And we'll get into some of the other races, but I mean, how did your upbringing influence your ability to be able to really excel in business and on in these races? Was your parents a big part of that foundation?
Yeah. So, I mean, I was an only child. So I obviously didn't have siblings or anyone else to kind of rely on. I had a lot of friends, but my parents were pretty involved in my life. And my mom was a ball buster. My mom rode my ass. I mean, there's no way in hell I was ever going to miss a homework assignment. Like, she was not going to allow that. And I think, her, and then combined, like, seeing my dad and, him commuting to DC an hour each way, 2 hours every day, putting in these crazy weeks, and yet never missing a baseball game or a basketball, football game, whatever. He was always there somehow. And my mom being there, riding me, making sure I was doing my stuff. The combination, it really like just instilled that work ethic in me, and kind of, I always say, like, that whatever it takes mentality. It's like, don't make excuses, just kind of figure it out. You don't have to have all the answers up front, but you just keep going. And so I think that really built that into me. And obviously, like, getting into Merrill Lynch out of school in 2002 after 3 years of a massive sell-off and companies were laying off, and it was really hard. And I went to BC, but I'm not the smartest guy. I'm not going to go out there and have the best grades, whatever. But I always worked hard, and I always put it out there. And so I think that helped me get in there and then excel at Merrill. And then when I got into running, I've always been such a lover of sports, and I wish I could play professionally. I wish I was a better golfer than shooting high 80s, or you can play anything. But as you get older in life, you got to find means to scratch that itch or still be competitive. And when I started running, I realized, well, running these distances, I don't have to be clocking 5-minute miles. Like, I don't have to be Kipchoge. I don't have to be these guys. I just have to be unbreakable, and I have to keep going at a consistent pace. And that work ethic that I kind of was brought up with translates well to going out there and running for 36 hours straight.
Oh, I love that. And so how, I guess I've always been told, if you run too much, you can stress your legs. And
yeah, for sure.
And I've also heard from, multiple marathon runners like yourself and ultra runners that the exact opposite, that you're actually strengthening your body, and you're not, there's everyone's got, joints that, wear down over time with age. But I guess how do you maintain that longevity and the ability to run ultra after ultra after ultra?
It's a great question. And some people have predispositions to certain things that allow them to do or do not certain activities. I mean, I always say this, if I had to just do a blanket statement: running long-term might not be great on the body, but it's good for your heart and it's great for your soul. And that's what I always say. And I mean, I've had injuries. I've had 4 surgeries from running, not necessarily just running straight, but from falling because I'm running on technical terrain or some things like that. I mean, it's beat my body up. I mean, I have a lot of chronic things now I deal with, where it's pain or this or that. But I think I'm a better person. I'm happier. I'm more productive. And right now, when I get a big race coming up in 3 weeks, my heart's on fire right now. I'm so excited up. Like, I cannot wait for this. And that translates to life and just my energy level, my enthusiasm. So I think there are so many good things that come out of running, but yeah, it can take its toll on you. And at some point in time, I mean, I might have to come to the realization that, I can't keep doing this anymore. I'm not as fast as I was 10 years ago. I got to spend a lot more time on recovery. If I go have a hard day, the next day I'm really feeling it and I'm just tired. Whereas 10 years ago, I could go have a hard day and then go out and crush beers and the next morning get up and do it. And I can't pull that off anymore. Right. So I have to be smarter about what I put in my body, which I am. I have to be like, I need more rest. Even if it's not sleep, just time off feet, and just be really smarter about, the way I carry myself if I want to continue doing this for a long time, which I do.
What made the switch from hating running? And I know you've kind of touched on this a little, and a lot of people share that sentiment. I was one of them. Never saw myself as a runner. Loved golf, right? Soccer, and I always thought the cross country team was crazy, and that these people right. were kind of wired differently. And then I ran my first half marathon a few weeks ago, and just all that training and leading up to it ended up being a lot of fun. Right. And learning about the technique and different things that runners train for that I was never really.
And what did you learn most about yourself in the process?
I surprised myself because Goggins, we've chatted about him, we kind of set this governor on ourselves. Right. And I had basically done a 5K and said, years ago said, I'll never run, that fast again. I'm getting older. So that was, kind of in my mind, I had made up. And then similar to you, for veterans, we had an opportunity to run this marathon for PGA Hope of Western New York, raise money for youth in golf, for bringing more diversity into the game of golf. And then for our veterans, it's a free program for them to learn the game of golf. So that's what got me roped into it. But I'm curious, I've talked enough. I wanted to hear from you. What made that switch from hating running to just loving it?
Just learning to love the suffer, learning that challenge of finding how much you can endure, how deep you can dig and keep going forward. I mean, it's almost a little masochistic, like, I'm not gonna lie, but it is just so empowering. And like, I know going to bad water, it is going to be the most pain I've ever endured in my life. I am going to have to suffer and suffer and suffer. It's going to knock me down. It's going to smack me in the face. I will likely get violently ill during the run. I hope I don't get a serious injury, but there's a probability that that could happen. But like, knowing that, I want to take that all on to see if I can get there. Right. And then when you go through an experience like that, I think two things really happen. One, when you get back to day, it's like, you don't complain about the small stuff. The little things don't matter. Oh, the weather sucks. Oh, there's traffic. The things that we all bitch about, I bitch about them all the time. It's like, after what I just went through, it's all good. It's all good. And B, the skills you learn by going through that process are very relatable to, especially being an entrepreneur, especially starting a business, grinding it out, having to rely on team. I'm going to have a crew out there. I'm not going to be able to do it by myself. I'm going to be relying upon my 4 guys that are out there with me, us working together, collaborating, being smart, having a plan. All that stuff translates into business. It translates into personal relationships. It translates into everything. And so I've always been an experiential learner, and there's nowhere I learn more than going out there and doing something like that.
Great answer. And I'm curious in terms of how one gets into bad water. I read Goggins' biography, and he mentioned applying for the race, and the race director said, you have to run 100 miles. You haven't done that. So he said, okay, I'll sign up for a race. And he ran 102 miles. He wanted to make sure, he ran a couple extra miles.
Yeah, right.
And he emailed the race director, who was really excited. And the director was kind of like, that's all you ran? He's like, why did you stop at 102?
You stopped early. Yeah. Cause he did it in like 18 hours. He's like, you had 6 hours to go. Why didn't you keep going? Yeah, I know.
So it just goes to show you that, that world you're talking about, it's just filled with people that are on, next level kind of.
Well, yeah. So you actually need to have completed, I know that was a certain set. You need to have completed 300s.
Wow.
In the prior year, but that's just like minimum. Then like, you got to have a lot of other stuff. If you've crewed, that helps. If you've run certain races like the Brazil 135 or the Keys 100, which I have, that are similar in terms of terrain and heat, there's certain things they weigh more. Obviously, to run across America, that's a nice little subjective kicker that I have, but that doesn't mean anything. Like the 100 milers and my times on those are what really matters. You have to do all that. Then you have to apply, you have to answer questions, kind of write an essay, and then they go through an application process. They have a board that votes on them, and they take 100 people each year out of thousands of applications. So
Wow.
it's very hard to get into, just to meet the standards, let alone to get selected. So for me, I've been, I went to Death Valley for my first training run back in 2009 before the Sahara race. That was my first ultra, and I didn't know anything about Death Valley, and I immediately fell in love with that. And later I found out there was this race, Badwater, there. And so I've been going back to Death Valley almost every year, and now living in California multiple times a year to train. It's the best place to train with that heat and the elevation and just everything. And so I've fallen in love with Death Valley. It's probably my favorite place on the planet. And so Death Valley plus this running, I've always wanted to do Badwater, and I didn't have the times, I didn't have the races. I've had to keep grinding, and then finally got in last year. Honestly, it was one of the highest moments of my athletic career, and then it was canceled, which was very just demoralizing. And then with COVID, with some of my business interests, I own fitness studios and some restaurants and stuff. I mean, I had a really rough year. I put on a lot of weight through the fall. I was just not in a good mental headspace. Last year was a really kind of tough year for me. I was really concerned financially. I wasn't healthy. Like I said, I was probably the heaviest I was till back before I started running. And so it was tough not being able to do Badwater. And so I had to make some changes. I had to come to grips with some stuff, and I've just been dialed in, all year, and things have kind of turned around. I've kind of fought through that dark side, and now, 3 weeks to go, knock on wood, I can keep training at a high level and go in there as injury free as possible, and then really attack this thing. So it's funny how lows can become highs. You learn from them. It's very analogous for these races, because like during these races, there's going to be 10 times where you feel like you're on top of the world and you're indestructible, and you're running, you're in that runner's high. You're like, I'm going to catch everyone. And then, 10 minutes later, people are passing you, your head's down, and you feel sick, and you're like, there's no way I'm going to get there. And just riding out those moments. I always say this, if you're feeling good, don't worry, it won't last. And if you're feeling like crap, don't worry, it won't last. Just keep moving forward. That's kind of the mindset for running these hundreds.
Do you think your background prior to the pandemic and really testing yourself mentally, physically, really helped you get through that time?
Yeah. Yep. It was very different though. I mean, again, like what we went through last year, again, so much of it was unknown because we didn't understand how scary it was. Like being in print, it was like being in prison for me without having a sentence. It was like indefinitely in prison. It's like if we knew we were going to be there for a year, or we'd be there for 2 years, that would be one thing. But you're like there, and you don't know what the hell is going to happen. You don't know how bad this thing's going to be, what the protocols are going to be going forward. California was locked down as much as anywhere. And, I don't agree with a lot of the decisions or the way they handled this thing out here in a number of different ways. And so it was just like, you're just kind of sitting there with your hands tied, not knowing what's going to happen. And it was even the past experiences I had been through, this was something that, you were not prepared to. So, you have to go to your core values. You have to find a way to dig deep. And, I struggled with that at times, but really, really proud of the way I, stayed true to myself and who I am, and the way I took care of people despite being in a tough spot, and then, kind of turning it around here. But it was a good learning experience for everyone. And I'm just really proud of everyone, the way we've kind of got through this, and good to see America kind of snapping back in a big way right now.
Yeah, I think that's a great message, because, and Goggins talks about it. He says people ask me all the time, what are you running, what problems are you running away from? He said, I'm running into them. He's like, I'm not running away from anything. And it's preparing for that unknown, that we all don't know what's around the corner. And that, unfortunately, the pandemic brought that to light. But your background, your training, pushing yourself to the limit, it had a purpose, that maybe someone before that would look at you and say, why are you doing that to yourself? And that's crazy. And why would you run an ultra? And why would you put your body through that? And it kind of, for me, it starts to make sense in terms of, that's important for down the road when the unknown hits, right?
Yep.
And just talk a little bit about thought that race was pretty cool. You did in, I believe it was Antarctica, 50 mile ultra. And the reason I bring it up on a number of levels, but the sad story with the race in China, through the mountains, and all those runners that had perished. And I mean, you're in this climate that is deadly, right? Talk about not knowing what's around the corner. How do you?
Yeah. So it's hard to kind of, I mean, imagine, so like if you're running a 100-mile race or 135 miles like Badwater, you guys are up in Buffalo. Probably most of your listeners are up there. I mean, that's what is that? Buffalo to Syracuse, Buffalo to, I'm trying to think, it's kind of like LA to San Diego. It's a very long distance, right? And then if you throw a bunch of mountains, desert, high heat, cold, snow in the middle, and then this isn't like a road marathon where every mile there's an aid station. There might be aid stations every 10 or 15 miles apart. And if you got 100 runners spread out of 135 miles, you could be all by yourself for very long periods of time. And the course is marked with flags in the ground. Maybe, they tie something to a tree, like a little pink piece of tape, like, oh, you're on the right path. It's very easy to get lost at times.
This is Badwater you're talking about?
I'm just talking about these, and you kind of asked sort of generally, because you were talking about the China, so kind of, but all the Badwater were on a road the whole way. So, and you have crew, but a lot of these races, you don't have crew. That race in China that you referred to, a lot of those runners, it got super cold. They were stuck out on the mountain. It started snowing. I wasn't there, but I've been in that. I ran the Hong Kong 100. They actually referenced that in that article. And I had a similar experience there where I was falling on black ice. I was lost. I ended up fracturing my hip from falling so much and getting hernias from that race. And those people were out there and they probably died of hypothermia. They may have gotten lost. They were just suffering. And it's tragic. It's horrible, but that's some of the unknown. That's some of the risks that you endure going through these things. Now, Badwater, I'm going to have crew with me. We're on a road the whole way, so I'll never be completely out on my own. But with temperatures pushing 130 degrees, I mean, your body could shut down. You could have a massive heart attack, a stroke, rhabdo, renal failure. I mean, you go through the list of things that can happen in that heat when you're pushing for 30 plus hours. So it is dangerous, and that's why you can't enter into these things recklessly. They're extreme, but you do your due diligence and you prepare properly so that you can mitigate the risks as good as possible. But at the end of the day, you don't really know what the hell's going to happen out there, and you just got to be prepared to adapt and overcome. And relentless forward motion, just keep driving no matter what. And, you go in there. I go in the Badwater. I'm going to finish. I don't know how. I don't know what's going to happen, but I will finish that race. And that's the mindset. Nothing will stop me.
And finish, we certainly hope you do. And it brings me to our friend here, David Goggins. There is no finish line, right?
I can't wait to see so we're in the same starting corral together. So we both go off at 11 p.m. in the last corral, and I don't think I'll probably see him for too long. I think he's probably going to take off. And I mean, he's one of the best on the planet. And I mean, he's a little older now. He's 46 now. So I think some of the younger guys, I don't know if he'll keep up with the Kostelniks and Greglias and a few of these other guys, but I'm sure Goggins is going to go out there and crush this race. And hopefully I can see a little bit of him, but it's someone that's inspired so many of us. I mean, we've heard his speeches, we've read his books. He's the real deal. There's a lot of guys, I'm not saying like Goggins, but there's a lot of guys that portray something on social media. And then I've raced against them and I'm like, dude, they're frauds. They don't put the work in, they'll quit, they'll lie about what they do in these races. Like I got the race with Jesse Itzler. Jesse wrote the first book on Goggins, Living with a SEAL. Yep. And, we did this race last man standing 2 August ago. And so it was a 4.2 mile loop with climbing, and you have to do it every hour. So at noon, then at 1, then at 2, and you keep going until you don't finish a lap or you don't start the next one. And you keep going until there's only one person left. And so Jesse was someone I've been connected with and I've heard about, but I was like, man, I wonder what this guy's like in person. And he went out there, man, and he went toe for toe with me all night, grinding through the night. There were 100 runners. He finished in the top 5. And I mean, I was so inspired by Jesse because I heard him speak. And then I went out there and I saw it in person. I'm like, that dude is the man.
Wow.
Like that dude lives it, walks it. His wife was out there. She was freezing cold in the middle of the night, had her jacket on, cheering him on. And we were going at it together. And it was one of my great memories of ultra running, doing that race. And that was all heart. You didn't need to be super fast. You just had to keep going and not quit. And we ran through that whole night together, the whole day, the whole night, through the next morning. And it was so cool. And Goggins he's just next level. His story, his upbringing, how that prepared him, what he's gone through. It's going to be an honor to get to meet him and compete against him.
From Buffalo too. Cool.
And from Buffalo.
Cool connection. So you have a successful race, we hope, for Badwater. Is that the climax for you, or are you kind of hardwired to
no? Well, so it's actually really cool. So a week and a half later, I'm going to Kilimanjaro, and with 14 guys, all veterans, and 4 are double amputees. And so this was an expedition we started working on, again, pre-COVID, that got canceled last year. And this is going to be very different. These are a bunch of vets that came back from Afghanistan, Iraq, these 4, I mean, severe physical, conditions that they're dealing with and disabilities. And, what you hear a lot of these guys say is they go to war, they're prepared to die for the country, they're prepared to come home, but they're not prepared for this new normal of not having limbs and how to deal with that. and not being felt like they're treated like an asset anymore. They feel like they're a liability, and the mental struggles that persist with that. And so this is going to be extraordinary. We're all going over on the same flight from JFK, and we're going to try and all climb it together. And
Wow.
everyone's going to be at different fitness levels, different physical abilities. I'm the one, I've been to Kilimanjaro back 7 years ago, so I have a little bit of experience. I'm not a big climber, but I know the team's kind of banking on me to help keep everyone together and get us all to the top and get us all home. That will be one hell of an accomplishment if we can all summit. I don't know how we're going to do it, but that's going to be really cool. So a little different than Badwater, where Badwater has been more of a personal goal of mine for a long period of time. This is just going to be an extraordinary team effort of sacrifice and truly whatever it takes for these guys. And they're going to change their lives. Like, they're looking for purpose. In a lot of cases, they feel this emptiness, this gap in their soul, and looking for purpose. And an event like this can reignite that engine. And so we're really excited about it. So I'll come back from that, and then, we'll kind of see where I'm at. I don't have anything really big on the calendar for the rest of the year, but I love doing this stuff. It lights me up inside. And when you can do it and inspire others to participate or give back for the common good, it's really remarkable. It's empowering, and something I want to be able to keep doing in the future.
That's awesome. I've got a few more quick questions for you. I
Sure.
know you've got a hard stop coming up here. Want to be cognizant of your time.
Sure.
Talk to me about the governor concept when you're in one of these races and you feel your body starting to shut down and your mind is kind of saying, all right, pack it in. How, I think we all know, we've all experienced that in some sports or physical activity or, business life. And we do push through it, but you're pushing through it kind of on a whole nother level. I guess, at what point do you actually listen to your body, or do you just override it and mentally push through it?
It kind of depends situation to situation. I'll say this is, when you think the tank is empty, you got reserves, and it's just a matter of being able to tap them. So, in a lot of cases where, like, I'm really, like, destroyed, I'm overheating, I'm feeling sick, what you just don't want to do is just shut it down completely and just say I'm out. So it's like, let's weather the storm. Like, I guess that's probably the best way to answer it. Let's weather the storm and let's stay in the game, right?
Right.
Like, let's fight for another day, essentially. So if I'm in that situation, like, yeah, maybe I have to dial it back a little bit, but let's keep grinding. Let's keep grinding. Let's, do what I need to do, whether it's hydrate, whether it's eat, whether it's cool a little bit, and let's fight through this low, and it will change. Like, it will change. Like, and I know that because I've been doing this stuff long enough where I'll get through it and I'll find another level. So, like, that governor, like, it's good to listen to it. It's good, but I know there's another level beyond that governor, and whether that thing is self-imposed or whether it's a temporary governor, you got to find a way to get through it. Now, just recklessly pushing through it and, like, pushing yourself to the point of death is, like, that's not smart. But you're going to have to absorb so much pain to finish one of these races. You just got to know that going in, and you just got to accept it.
So, last question. I know you're just coming back from Death Valley. You're juiced up. You've had some great runs, training in incredible heat, but I can hear it in your voice. There's passion, there's energy. What drives you?
I mean, I always say this, my life is about two things: relationships and experiences. I mean, as corny as that may sound, doing meaningful things with the people I love. I mean, that's what my life is about. I don't really care about material things that much. That doesn't really drive me. Like, making a ton of money. Like, obviously it's nice to have money so you can have experiences, but, like, it doesn't really drive me. Having events like going to Badwater and having my dad and three of my best friends crew me, and no matter what happens out there, that's something we're going to talk about for the rest of our lives. And what am I going to get out of it? Like, some incredible stories and a belt buckle. And it's like, but that's something that this moment we'll talk about for the rest of our lives. Or going to Kilimanjaro, we'll talk about for the rest of our lives. So, like, those stories, like having stories, collecting memories, not collecting material goods, like, to me, that drives me. And I feel blessed that I get to do stuff like this and share it with people I love. Like, that's what drives me.
Awesome finish. Thanks for your support with dollars and OnCore Golf, and passion and energy. and our community is rooting for a successful finish for you at Badwater.
And
Kick some butt.
congrats to all the good work. I saw Andy out there at Torrey last Thursday, so was following him around a bit.
So cool to have the Vero being played at a major, the highest levels in golf, and certainly a testament to Keith and our engineering team, and just the level of talent that goes into a ball, and so yeah, appreciate that plug there.
No, it was great. Now, the next plug is we need a golf entertainment center in California. Top Golf has not infiltrated Southern California yet. That's next on the list.
Law of attraction, right? You put it out there and good things will come. So
absolutely.
Thanks for being on our podcast.
Yeah, it was great. Thanks so much, Steve. Appreciate it.
All right. Cheers.